what are some of the red flags that people need to look out for before they get into marriage?
I would like to say character first. Character. You have to be of good character. You have to be of, I can't use the word perfect character, but of good character. And again, if I were to go biblically, it's a lot more essential to have the fruits of the Spirit. Yeah, because
shall know them by their fruit.
Yeah, because it encompasses everything. I mean, I'm not saying that individuals could possibly have all the traits of the fruit of the Spirit, but at least the majority of it. Then there's some really important ones like love, patience, self-control, kindness. There's several ones that you need to have. Now, if that is not there, it's a huge red flag, because dating or courtship and marriage, they're absolutely two different things altogether. Who isn't your husband yet? At that point in time, you're only submissive to your father, to your guardian, someone who's like a father figure to you. But to the person you're intending to marry, you're not meant to.
Yeah. It's not your responsibility to be submitted.
It's not. But of course, we get it quite wrong when we're looking at dating or courtship and the marriage itself. Yeah, there's a lot of confusion and mistakes that people make. People believe that they need to do things they are meant to do in marriage in dating.
Hello, and welcome back to the 360 Perspective podcast with me, Trisha. It is another Thursday, another wonderful episode that we are just going to unpack today. And I'd love to say thank you so much for everyone who shared their feedback and just positive responses in regards to the last episode that we dropped. For a lot of single ladies were like, it was quite awakening, the episode that we got to unpack with my friend Sharon, where she got to share her journey of divorce and some of the lessons that she learned in her own personal journey. So thank you so much for the positive feedback, and I really do hope that you will continue to be inspired and challenged by the conversations that we get to have here on the podcast. Well, today, just based off on the conversation that we had last Thursday, I got an opportunity to bring along a premarital facilitator here in Dubai. And definitely with that, it's going to be a very hot conversation, because Christian courtship, or as some people call it, Christian dating, isn't just about crossing your fingers and praying for the one, but there's so much that goes into it. There are red flags to be watched out for and some green lights that really do matter in the journey of courtship. And that is the conversation that we will be unpacking today with a premarital facilitator. So ladies and gentlemen, help me welcome my friend, Tola. Welcome.
Thank you very much for having me.
It's such a pleasure to have you on here.
Thank you.
And I want to begin by giving you an opportunity to just introduce yourself, your name, and what you do, your family, and any other detail that you'd love to share with us.
Okay. My name is Tola. I've been married for 14 years. My wife's name is Tolu. We have 2 kids.
Tola and Tolu, guys.
Exactly. Yeah. We get that a lot.
Wow.
Yeah. People usually ask us, did we actually plan it? But we didn't. It's just how it is.
Wow.
We have a 13-year-old girl and an 8-year-old boy.
14 years married.
Yeah, 14 years.
Awesome.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
We've known each other for about 20 plus years.
Really? Were you high school lovers or something?
Well, university. Basically, yeah.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Makes sense. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And you're also a premarital facilitator?
Yes, for Fellowship Dubai.
Yeah, for 3 years now, or how
Yes.
long?
3 years.
3 years.
Average of 3 years, yes.
Okay, just taking different couples through just the journey of courtship and what they need to know and be equipped in before entering marriage, or while
yes.
they're preparing.
Yeah. We actually just finished a cohort last week Sunday.
Okay.
Pretty interesting. And ironically, after that Sunday, I had to attend one of the weddings on Wednesday.
Oh,
yeah.
From one of the students?
Yes, absolutely.
Wow,
Yeah.
one of the couples in the course?
It was beautiful, yes.
Oh, Okay, that's nice.
Yeah.
That's nice. Okay, and we'll get to unpack a little bit more on just what goes on behind premarital counseling and why it's really important.
Right.
But the core part of today's conversation is what are some of the red flags that we need to watch out for, specifically those who are single and they're looking forward to enter into the space of marriage, and what are some of the green lights that kind of like at the go ahead. But before we go into defining maybe some of the red flags to watch out for, I was having that conversation with you yesterday where we were talking about dating is not even in the Bible. And I'd love for us to just unpack that, to just lay a foundation on just the weightiness of even sometimes even just these terminologies that we use, and I mean some people say words don't really matter and whatnot, but when it comes especially to the biblical standards of marriage, you mentioned to me you heavily believe that biblically it's courtship.
Yes.
There's no dating.
Yes.
So perhaps you can start from there and then now we're going to.
Okay. The reason why I said that was because now during our sessions, there's this. My wife and I have some certain terms that we typically would use, and one of the questions that we had that we use the term for is the wife has got to be submissive to the husband. So one of the many questions we get often is during dating, do we have to be submissive to our boyfriends? And it's a clear-cut answer. The truth is, you are not meant to be submissive to someone who isn't your husband yet. At that point in time, you're only submissive to your father, to your guardian, someone who's like a father figure to you. But to the person you're intending to marry, you're not meant to.
Yeah. It's
So-
not your responsibility to be submitted to
It's
them.
not. But of course, we get it quite wrong when we're looking at dating or courtship and the marriage itself. Yeah, there's a lot of confusion and mistakes that people make. People believe that they need to do things they are meant to do in marriage, in dating, or even in courtship. You can have the conversations. You can come to an agreement. You can juggle a few things, but you cannot specifically follow the same rule without you being married.
Interesting. So is there a difference between courtship and dating, or it's because a lot of times people just use it interchangeably,
Yes.
not necessarily with demarcation, especially for a lot of Christians. Definitely with the worldly standards, dating is more of, to date you. If I'm tired of you, I pick somebody else tomorrow. But I think for a lot of believers, they interchangeably use the word like dating
Right.
and courtship. I don't know what your thought is on that.
They're totally different, really.
Yeah.
Because again, the Bible clearly states that God ordained marriage for his own reasons. But one, the courtship aspect of it is where, again, like I earlier said, the things you do in marriage, you can't do them during courtship. For example, again, the submission part.
So by submission, practically, what does that look like? Because I think for some people, they're like, okay, what do you mean? How do people submit, like in dating, the ones who ask those questions? Like, what do they mean when they say, do I need to submit in dating?
Good question. The submission honestly does not mean you have to jump when your husband says jump, or you asking how high. Not exactly. Now, the reason is that in the Bible, it says that husbands should love their wives. Husbands should respect their wives, take care of them, and be nurturing. But for the wife, it says honor your husband and submit and respect. Okay? But the thing is, like I would always say, it's mixed up a lot. The submission part, again, I would still state, is not the fact that you have to act like a slave. It's not. It has to do with, for me, it's a two-way traffic. Okay, because if the husband loves the wife genuinely, not just her, cares for her.
It will be easy for the wife to submit.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's more mutual.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And submission really isn't about bowing your head. It's about respect. It's about allowing leadership. Now, don't get me wrong. a woman could also typically lead, but from a different point of view. Okay? The submission has got to do with the fact that she accepts that the husband is the head of the home, the same way Christ is the head of the church. It's actually as simple as that. But of course, a lot of people take it out of context.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you'd also be surprised that even intending husbands would tell you, or rather would tell us, that they don't believe that wives should submit. But again, if you want to go the biblical route,
Yeah.
that's how it is.
Yeah.
Unless you don't want to,
Yeah.
then it's your call.
Yeah. Interesting. So ideally in dating, submission is not it's not a mandate. Or in
Absolutely
courtship,
not.
submission is not a mandate.
Absolutely not.
In the sense of so how do you balance allowing the guy to lead the relationship while you're still courting then? Or that we wouldn't call that submission really.
No, you wouldn't. You probably just
Okay.
call it coming to a sort of agreement.
Okay.
So to say, if I were to put it in my own words, yes. It would have to be like a sort of mutual understanding. Okay, this is what we should do. Okay, you think so? Yeah. But not categorically use the word submission. Again, at that point, biblically, I will always add that it does not come into play. There's a difference. Yeah.
Okay, so in the instances where you find, the boyfriend has told the lady, like quit school, or like some of those heavy decisions, or I'm trying to think in my head what kind of example.
Yeah, for submission, right?
Yeah.
There are lots of it actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, like that's a typical example. Or maybe the guy says, let's try and have a baby before we get married. Yeah, you have to kind of like telling you to submit to that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So some of those critical decisions that in marriage submission would be required, but in courtship you're not mandated to
Not at all.
yield to some of those life-changing decisions.
No, and as a matter of fact, the guy, the male partner, really is not expected to seek it.
Okay.
Talk less of demanding it.
Okay, interesting. That's an interesting perspective.
Again, remember,
Yeah.
biblically.
Yeah, biblically, yes.
Yeah,
We're talking about the standards,
yeah.
standards of the Bible and not standards of the world. Because
Absolutely
biblically,
not.
this can be a very easy area of contention,
Yep.
especially the topic of just submission and I mean, to be honest, it's become a gray area with what courtship and dating looks like in today's society.
Right.
A lot has been twisted. What ideally ought to be done in marriage is now being done in the courtship and the dating phase. Interesting. Okay, so let's go into the what are some of the red flags that people need to look out for before they get into marriage? Because I know some people have found themselves in marriages whereby they'll promise and tell you this guy or this lady was a Christian, knew the Bible from Revelation to Genesis and Genesis to Revelation. But once I got into the marriage, my God, it was like a disaster, And sometimes it's like, were there any, apart from somebody just being a Christian, are there any red flags that, people need to look out for as they're in that journey of courtship and just vetting the right person that God has for them?
Right. I would like to say character first. Character. You have to be of good character. You have to be of, I can't use the word perfect character, but of good character. And again, if I were to go biblically, it's a lot more essential to have the fruits of the Spirit. Yeah, because
shall know them by their fruit.
Yeah, because it encompasses everything. I mean, I'm not saying that individuals could possibly have all the traits of the fruit of the Spirit, but at least the majority of it. Then there's some really important ones like love, patience, self-control, kindness. There's several ones that you need to have. Now, if that is not there, it's a huge red flag, because dating or courtship and marriage, they're absolutely two different things altogether. Yes, you could date for 10 years, but you'll be surprised that you won't get that you can't stay in that marriage for 1 year.
Interesting. Why so?
Because at that point in time, everybody, who you are comes out. who you truly are comes
Oh
out.
yeah, now in marriage, your true
Yeah.
colors.
Yeah, it comes out.
Yeah.
No matter even if you probably lived with that person for the 10 years, as long as it's not a marriage, some things will still be kept. Or rather, also, on the other hand, there are some things you wouldn't see. Maybe because you did not want to see it. Maybe because you were blinded by whatever emotions, you probably wouldn't see it. Also, that also comes into play, unfortunately. But once the marriage has taken place, the wedding, and it's in the middle of the marriage, let me put it like this: everything becomes real. Everything becomes real. Yeah. At that point in time, no holds barred. The like the veil comes down from your face, and it's a different ballgame entirely.
Interesting. Are there any red flags that can easily go unnoticed in Christian courtship? In the sense of, later in marriage, you realize, oh, I never paid attention to this or I missed that. I just overlooked the fact that he was a Christian and that was it.
Well, if there's one thing I could easily always say, in marriage, love truly is not enough. It's not. It helps, but it's not enough. There are days where, honestly, sometimes it just wouldn't matter. And the ones that will matter the most will be kindness, patience. There's a third one, understanding and tolerance. Yes. If those things aren't there, and also friendship. Yeah. I think I'd rather put friendship as number one. Yes.
Somebody
Friendship.
that you can grow the friendship with, you can be easy with, you can enjoy company, their
Exactly.
company. Okay.
And someone you could also fight with, have arguments with, be upset with, be angry at. But at the end of the day, because you're friends, you will get back one way or another.
Yeah. Interesting. So when you talk about character, what are some of the wrong character or alarming character that we need to watch out for, especially for the singles who are in that phase of vetting a potential lifetime partner?
Okay. Let me use the biblical terms for marriage to answer this question. The husband is meant to love the wife, meaning regardless of whatever. It means that the husband at every point in time has to love the wife, no matter what issues might be between them. I mean, you could have your fights, but knowing deep down inside you that you still love that person, and that person also sees and understands that he still loves you. That's one. And the ironic thing is, in marriage, biblically, it's not mandated for the wife to love the husband. It's not.
But it's a mandate for men.
Yes, absolutely. In fact, we as men have more responsibilities
That's true.
in the marriage than the wife does. And now for the wife also, there has to be that respect. It has to be that respect, because we can't go into submission now, because again, like you said, probably still in the courtship stage. You need to see that this certain person respects you in public and in private.
Yeah.
Because those are what you might term as minute things that you probably wouldn't even think about.
Yeah.
Until you get married, and then it hits you that, okay, this person actually does not respect me. This person does not see me as a partner, as a human being. Probably sees me as someone to be pushed around or to take my orders at every given point in time. Those are one of it. That's one of it as well.
Yeah, and I personally believe that respect for women is embodied around humility. Because for you to respect someone and ultimately even yield and submit, there has to be a level of humility that you carry in your heart.
Absolutely.
To yield and be able to say, I'm allowing, I may not 100% agree, but I'm allowing this person to, to take the lead, to, make some decisions, and just having that humble heart of of knowing that that's the position that God has called you to be.
Yes.
And I also love the fact that you say the mandate for men, ultimately they're called to love their wives regardless of whatever is going on. As for me, I always believe it's your responsibility also towards God. So it's part of you obeying what God has said, even
Yes.
beyond the actual realities that you are in, where you feel she doesn't deserve my love, she didn't cook for me, so why should I love on her? But I think that definitely, especially now having crossed over to marriage, there are moments when you do it because you have the fear of God inside of you, and you do it because you honor and respect God, and you desire to live in accordance to His word.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. So can someone be spiritually mature but emotionally unavailable?
Yes, I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I absolutely think so. You could be strong in the word,
Mm.
in your faith,
Yeah.
but emotionally to a fellow human,
Yeah.
you might not find yourself in that area. It's
Yeah.
possible, clearly,
Yeah.
because especially I would think that it's because like 101 focus would have been
Mm.
on your spirituality.
Mm.
Let's not forget that we still have to deal with
Mm.
human beings down here as well.
Mm-hmm.
But some people also still miss it.
Yeah.
And that and the thing is, there are so many aspects of marriage where one partner could be extremely spiritually strong, but strongly lacking in the features of a partner.
Yeah.
And it goes into so many things. Because for example, sex also is part of what God designed for marriage, not just for childbearing, but also for enjoyment for the couples. Now, in the instance where that said individual who is spiritually woke, let's use mature, is not so much
Emotional available.
exactly, there
It's
becomes
gonna
a
be a
problem.
problem.
Yeah,
Okay.
a huge
So
problem.
before marriage, that's something to definitely look out for.
Yeah, but how could you possibly look out for it though?
No, I think it's very much possible because
How?
when you're in the courtship phases, because I feel like those are some of the things that you overlook. Um, his emotional availability. As they normally say, that those people who love bomb you, they'll buy you gifts, they do all these things, but then emotionally being available when you want to have conversations, you just want to spend time, or even just them opening up, they're always closed up. They don't want to talk about that emotional side of them. They're very disconnected. They don't want to talk about deep things that trigger emotions. So they more just want to keep it surface level,
Right.
and they'll bombard you with all these nice things, good things, but then when it comes to really deep intimate conversations, or even just showing up for you, because like most, especially women, we are very emotional, and we like somebody connecting with our emotions.
Yeah.
So sometimes you can find somebody who's available to do all these things for you, but emotionally, they block
Yeah.
being
Yes,
available.
non-existent. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think it's definitely possible, and I think, in my opinion, I feel like it's as you said, it's one of those things. Even in marriage, for women, when there's no connection, you struggle even in the area of sex.
Yeah,
So
sure.
it's something that if you really realize that it's lacking when you're courting, then you better figure out whether it's something that can be sorted before you enter into marriage.
Yeah, we are right. And in that case, also that means we can actually call that a red flag as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I personally think that's something to watch out for. And I love the fact that one of the things that you mentioned as green light, which maybe you can unpack if there are any other green lights, is looking out for the character, but more so the fruit. Because a lot of times we just focus on this person is a Christian, they quote the Bible, but really, do their fruit really match what they preach?
Yeah, the actions.
Do their actions match what they're preaching, and what are the fruit that they bear? Are they easily angered, or are they somebody who's patient? How do they treat people around them? Do they embody truly the fruit of the Holy Spirit, which is love, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, all these different fruit of the Bible that the Word of God speaks about? I don't know if there are any other green lights that you'd definitely see in a relationship and advocate that, yes, this is the right relationship you're headed in.
And we'll tell you what, if you do strongly and properly look at the fruits of the Spirit individually, it embodies everything, really.
That's true.
Yeah. I mean, aside from just listing them out, if you just list them out, you won't really get the point 100%. But if you list them out and take one individually and then pair it up with
the individual,
exactly, it works. So honestly, so oftentimes the Bible, sometimes the Bible might seem cumbersome, but sometimes it's also quite simple if you take your time out to study patiently. Yeah.
Okay. So how would one handle attraction to someone with questionable spiritual maturity? Because I've had ladies who are like, I mean, yeah, he's a Christian, but I feel like our maturity levels are different. You know, I'm really deep in the word. You know, he attends church occasionally, once in a while, reads the Bible once in a while. And I realized that women who really struggle with that. And they're like, he doesn't really, is that really something that, you know, you need to be careful for, or you need to extend grace and allow the person to mature, or do you need to look at their teachability? Like, how do you gauge between this person is just spiritually not mature and I don't think it's a God ordained relationship and I need to leave them, versus he's not spiritually mature, but I need to maybe extend grace to them and see how this thing will work out.
Okay.
Because he treats me well and does all these kind of things.
Okay, that's a great question. And I have an example, a living example. Of course, I won't mention names.
Yes.
Now, it has to do with the patience of the person who is spiritually sound and the conviction. Okay, so we have this friend who, when they started out, she was very spiritually strong-willed. The chap was not. She'd go to church, and all he'll do the first couple of weeks, just drop her off, head back home. She didn't say one word, but she prayed about it. Gradually, started to change. Now he'll drop her off, hang around until church is done, and then go back home. You notice the trend. He has stopped going back home. Now he's staying back. Eventually, he started going in, not taking part, not doing anything actively, but going in and just sitting down and just watch. Again, she didn't say anything, but she just kept on praying about it. She said she never uttered a word about, why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? Not a single thing. Wisdom. Until eventually, not only did he go, he was attentive, he paid, and he was now fully into the word. And today, they couldn't be stronger ever. So honestly, it depends on your conviction. You have to be able to read it within yourself.
And that's God.
And that's
I realize
God.
the prayer part is
Yeah,
very critical.
absolutely. You can't do it by
being
yourself.
able to be discernful.
Yep. You can't do it by yourself. You have to pray about it. And then God will actually let you know. Sometimes it takes for you to talk. It takes for you to be verbal. And in some other instances, it just takes for you to be silent, but keep praying. So, one size truly does not fit all.
Okay, great. So you've been a premarital facilitator for 3 years.
Yeah,
About 3 years. So what are some of the things that you'd say, foundational things that couples overlook in courtship? Because I think the reality is, I don't know whether, some of the people know out there, but a lot of times when people go through the premarital counseling, not all the couples make it to the place of marriage. Some of them break in between or maybe at the end of the teachings and the lessons. So what would you say, based off on your experience, some of the foundational things that couples overlook while dating, or some of the reasons that lead to the marriage not going through after the counseling sessions?
I think it has to do a lot with knowing each other. Because marriage is quite vast in that institution. I would always say the marriage institution is very beautiful, but also it's very complicated. It has its numerous heartaches. Okay. Now there are so many aspects to it. Okay, you could look at the sex area, you could look at the finances, the family dynamics, communication, conflict resolution. There's so many of it. Things that you would typically not think should be said or should be noticed or should have it or a discussion should be had over. You miss it. Now, during sessions, like you rightly said, some have actually dropped along the way because they realized that the lessons made them realize that this person certainly isn't what this is saying. And not only that, it's also because they accept that this is exactly what marriage should be, but the other person does not. Okay? So if honestly, I think counseling is one of the best things. Again, it depends on the sort of counseling you take, you go through. But a proper counseling or a facilitation or facilitating session is extremely ideal. This opens you to what you would have never figured needed to be said. Loads of it.
Yeah, or even investigated.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
And funny enough, some of it you honestly don't even have to investigate. You realize that just asking that simple question, you won't get an answer, or you won't get a logical answer or
A satisfying response.
a satisfied response. Exactly. That will make you think, okay, this we're not aligned. And the truth is, as long as it's clear that there's no alignment, because even ordinarily when there's alignment, that's why I say marriage is beautiful, but it's also complicated. Even when the two people meet and and God has ordained it and God has said it would have to be the two of you, the struggles that still come with it, you can't fathom, honestly. And it's continuous. You know, it's the same way God Himself said that He does not promise that we won't have troubles. We will have. But the only thing He promises is that He'll be right there with us if we seek His face. That's exactly how marriage is.
And I love the fact that you brought out the whole importance of preparing, because I think going through such a session, premarital counseling session, is very critical as part of preparing for the marriage, because there are so many realities and conversations that you need to have, and you need to know the responses and how the other person thinks before you enter into marriage, instead of entering into marriage and then you start discovering all these things that you never discussed before. They were never unearthed. You probably would have found out about them before entering into marriage, but then it almost feels like it's a little bit too late, because now you've crossed over and there's some truths that are coming out because they were never asked before. And I think that's the heavy importance of premarital counseling.
Yeah.
And I think the other question I was going to ask, you mentioned about alignment, but I'm wondering, some people nowadays just want to get married because they're lonely and all these other reasons. But is there really a purpose for marriage, especially biblically, when it comes to like Christian courtship, dating, and marriage, that people need to be aware of before they enter into that space of marriage?
Absolutely. The biblical purpose of marriage is for us to take charge of the earth and project God's will. That's the first thing. It's not because you're lonely. Marriage was never designed for you not to be lonely, for you to have excitement, for you to have a thrill, a thrill of a life, sex or whatever. It's just that all those things come into marriage and not the other way around. Because again, God still ensured sex, because you mentioned sex, ensured sex for us to enjoy, to keep ourselves faithful to each other. Okay? So all those things truly, truly, truly matters. God ordained it. It's right there in the Bible in several passages. So people quite a lot of people. I mean, truth is, when I got married, I could easily say that those were we didn't have such a session. We had counseling, but it wasn't so in depth. We just understood that we wanted to get married. Which is one of the reasons why this marriage and facilitating course enriches my wife and I for every time we do it. Yeah, it helps. It helps.
Yeah, because as you're teaching, you're also being equipped and being
Exactly.
strengthened in your
Continuously.
marriage. Wow. Okay, maybe that's a trigger for me and my husband to sign up as facilitators. But you also mentioned earlier on when we were talking about like some of the topics that are covered in premarital counseling.
Yeah.
You mentioned about finances, and finances are becoming a big thing right now.
Yep.
Are there any red flags when it comes to finances before marriage that somebody needs to look out for? Because it's becoming a huge concern, especially like when I hang out with my girlfriends. A lot of them, especially women, we let me say there's a sense of security that we have when there's money, and there's a sense of fear that we tend to have when there's no money. And that's why women right nowadays are more driven, make your own money, be independent. It gives a sense of control as well. And this narrative of if I'm making more money than he is, I don't know whether that's a red flag, or his financial status at the moment. Like, how do you gauge between this is a red flag when it comes to finances with this individual, and this is somebody who has a vision and a plan, and they just, need the right environment for it to grow? How do you gauge the two?
You would know.
Yeah.
Yeah, you would know. You should. It's something it's something you should know. It's something you should be able to figure out. Yeah, and all these things, these questions is truly for that individual, because I can't give, or anyone else can't give features for it. Yeah, you have to be able to you have to discern.
So what are some of the questions perhaps you
Should ask?
Yeah.
Well,
To dig a bit
goals,
deeper.
really, goals.
Okay.
What are we, for example, are we going to have our own property? For example, what kind of school will the kids go, private or public? Where do you want to live? Your lifestyle. And also, one of the important things that we also advise couples is that you should understand who has strength in what. For example, between a couple, there's a very good chance that one will be a spender and the other will be a saver. You need to know who is which. And at that point in time, you need to also know who is better at keeping accounts of the finances. Sometimes, yes, maybe sometimes you could do it together. But then again, maybe it could be confusing. But if you are able to both admit where your strength lies, and you accept the person with the larger amount of strength in the area of finance,
to take lead.
Thank you. Yeah. Irrespective of how much is coming in, even if it's the wife that is much better at doing it, and the husband brings in even say 100%, there's absolutely nothing wrong in allowing the said wife to do more of the managing. Otherwise, you might not be able to reconcile what's coming in and what's going out. Yeah, it's also part of it's also part of the script that we use also for the sessions. And usually we are thrown questions at based on that. And unfortunately, a lot of them actually now, give their own instances, because again, during the courses, there are couples exercises that they have to go do on their own. And then the next session, depending on if you want to share, you would share. So most of them are not, they actually do share, and it's at that point they realize, okay, yeah, that's true. I think he is better at saving. I'm probably better at sort of spending it. Exactly.
Yeah.
So at that point, they tend to now sort of agree on the fact that, okay, you spend, I save. So with that, there's a better synergy between both of you. And you can actually now align better and manage your finances. But like you said, finance plays a whole lot. You might think it doesn't when you start off. but it does
In the long run.
in the
And
long
it's
run.
one of those,
Yeah,
it becomes an area of contention that ultimately can even lead to divorce.
quite easily.
Especially,
Yeah,
yeah,
quite
it's one
easily.
of the top, I understand, reasons. So what are some of the other topics that couples need to engage in when they're courting? Yeah, because sometimes people just think courting is, oh, take me for coffee. I look pretty. I look nice.
If
What are
only.
some of the what are some
If
of those
only.
critical questions that people need to be equipped with when they're serious about entering into a courtship that leads into marriage?
Okay.
Yes.
Let me pick one, which is usually the most controversial, which is sex.
Mhm.
Now,
But you can give us all of them. Don't just give us one.
oh, you want me to list? Oh, you
Yeah,
want me
no,
to
like, at
list?
least just maybe like top 3, 4. We've already talked
Okay.
finances.
Yeah,
Is
we
a
have
huge
to.
one.
Okay, yeah.
Yes.
So, yeah, okay, let me actually take conflict resolution and communication.
Yes.
Yeah. That is, I think that's one of my top two.
Okay.
Yes. Because usually when there's conflict, there are multiple ways to handle it. Okay. But there's usually very few ways to handle it that is right. Yeah. And there's a whole lot about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can't, it's not something I can actually skim through.
So, what are some of the questions that maybe when you're dating or courting someone, you need to raise or ask them?
Okay. For example, if we have conflict, is this something you're okay to settle on like immediately? Or I need to give you space? Is it something that once it happens, should I walk away? Should I stay? Like I said, it's really broad. For communication also, how do you communicate with your partner? Do you do it with love, with respect, or you do it otherwise? That also plays a strong role as well. Because at that point in time, it could border on disrespect. It could border on what's the word? Border on disrespect, basically, yeah. Which really, truly nobody, likes or wants. Another thing also would be family dynamics. For example, when we're married, is your mom coming to stay with us? When we're married, am I going to cater for your family members? There's a whole lot. There's a whole lot. And these are the things that people realize that they just never figured mattered.
Yes. And they never discussed it. Okay.
Zero.
So, at what point do people need to register for premarital counseling or premarital education?
When you've both decided, when you've decided on your own that you want to move forward with it and that you need a bit more insight, then it's the
Forward
best
with the
time.
relationship, or until do you have to wait until when you start talking about marriage, or is it something that
You'd have
I've
to.
met someone and it's serious? Because I remember for us, we felt premarital counseling would be a core part in the dating and getting to know each other, because then it would bring some of those critical conversations to the table.
Right.
And as you said, the benefit sometimes of doing the whole course is it also helps you realize whether really is this the person or is it not, because when you come together, ultimately it doesn't 100% mean that both of you will get married.
Yeah.
Along the way, you might realize maybe that just this is not the person, or maybe I'm just not ready. It unearths a lot of things. And so I remember for us, once we started dating and we felt this is serious, we possibly foresee this becoming a bit more serious.
Right.
We decided to do it in the formative stages as we were just also getting to know each other,
Right.
as a way of let's find space to unpack some of the deep conversations instead of just spending money on dinner dates and coffee dates and but I don't know. Yeah, I don't know what your thoughts are as to how soon or how early can couples sign up for this course.
Again, I think is when you really made up your mind, because there's a huge difference between there's probably just one singular word to differentiate between dating and courtship, and I think it has to do with your intentions. You can date, but there's no intention not to date someone else. There's no intention not to break up with that person in about a month. But in courtship, the intention is that you are going to
Marriage.
get married. Yeah. So again, some people obviously
Good
get it wrong by saying
explanation.
that I'm dating, that we might get married, or it's the dating would lead. No, you have to be. You have to use some certain keywords, and that keyword has got to be courtship, because that's the difference.
Yeah.
So it's at that point that you figure that you both know that, okay, this is the intention. This is both our intentions. Then let's move a step further by going for it, so that we would actually know, understand each other better, and then we'll know, and then we'll take it from there.
Okay, okay. Thank you for breaking that down a bit more. And yeah, it's. I think it's an encouragement to those who are considering taking things to the next level to
Yeah.
consider doing this particular course. If they would love to sign up or find out more about signing up for premarital courses,
Okay.
where can they get the information from?
Fellowship Dubai.
Fellowship Dubai
Yes.
Church. Okay, it's one of the churches here in Dubai that offers the
Yeah.
premarital. And you don't have to. Do you have to be a member of a church, or it's open?
Will preferably.
Preferably.
Yeah.
Okay,
Preferably,
it's
yes.
preferably for members, but
Yeah, but also
also
we're
open.
also very open
Okay.
to would I use the word newcomers?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay,
Yeah.
okay. That's good to know. That's good to know. All right. So finally, as we land this conversation, any advice for singles who feel left behind, or they're in their journey of preparing and waiting to get married? Any word of advice?
Don't rush into it.
Mm.
Know yourself. Make sure you align yourself with what God has said in the Bible. You have to, because you can't expect yourself not to be ready, but want someone else to be ready. So you have to be, personally, you have to be able to grow in the word. You need to understand what marriage is about. You need to know that first before you meet someone, because if you don't know that for yourself, there's almost no way you can understand the other person or know where exactly that person is coming from. Because if you know what you want and what and what it should be, you know exactly what to look out for. Instead of just jumping into it because you're lonely, because you're running out of time. Yeah, because yeah.
Okay. All right. Okay, we get the point.
Exactly.
We get the point. But thank you so much, Tola, for this wonderful, wonderful insights and the secrets that you've given us in regards to just some of the things to watch out for before getting into the space of marriage. Just the conversations that need to be unearthed. I believe there's so much gem that our audience is going to receive from this conversation. So thank you so much.
You're welcome. It's a pleasure.
And yeah, for our audiences, I really do hope that you've gotten to enjoy this conversation. I hope that there are lessons and things that you've gotten to take out from the conversation, that you've been inspired, you've been challenged, and hopefully some of your perspectives have been transformed by the conversation that we've had today. And this is our final episode for season 4. We'll be going into another season where we'll get to enter into another series of conversations. So definitely this wraps up the conversation on relationships and godly dating, courtship, and marriage. But I really do hope that you've gleaned a lot from the different episodes that we've had in the season rather. And who knows, maybe we might have a bonus episode. I don't know. But yeah, for right now, I'm so grateful for each one of you who's been a part of this journey from the very first episode to this final episode of this season. And I really do hope that you've continued to share these episodes with your community and people around you. And if you haven't subscribed, please do, so that you can get to join and be a part of the 360 Perspective podcast family, and follow us all across social media platforms. But that's it for today. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll definitely be seeing you in our next season as we unpack the next series of the conversation that we'll be having here at the 360 Perspective podcast. Until then, we'll we'll be on a little break as we pack and prepare for the next season. So please allow us some grace as we take the break, but we'll be back better with incredible conversations that will be coming up in the next series. That's it for today. See you.